Hello, I'm Jesse McAnally.
And I'm Andrew DeWolf.
And welcome to Musicals with Cheese, a podcast where I try to get Andrew to like musical theater week by week and show by show. And Andrew?
Yeah?
You know what?
What's that?
I don't think you quite understand what's going on here, man.
I can try to understand. What's the problem?
Either you're closing your eyes to a situation you do not wish to acknowledge, or you are not aware of the caliber of disaster indicated by the presence of a Music Man revival in your community?
Oh, a Music Man revival?
Well, you got trouble, my friend. Right here, I say trouble right here in New York City. Why, sure, I'm a Music Man appreciator. Certainly mighty proud to say it, always mighty proud to say it. I consider the hours I spend watching Robert Preston golden. Help you cultivate horse sense and a cool head and a keen eye. Did you ever take and try to give yourself an ironclad lead with... I was trying. That was me going from memory right there.
You had a good run there. It was almost something.
It was almost something, but sadly I fucked it up, which is how I'd also describe the 2021 revival of The Music Man.
You know what you should have done? You should have started laughing and then did a little jig when you messed up.
Oh yeah, hold on. Either you're closing your eyes to a situation. The audience is laughing. Wasn't that natural? Cue the music, Andrew.
76 trombones led the big parade, with 110 cornets close at hand. They were followed by rows and rows of the finest virtuosos, the cream of every famous band. 76 trombones caught the morning sun, with 110 cornets right behind. There were more than 1,000 reeds springing up like weeds. There were horns of every shape and kind. There were copper-bottom, timpani, and horse platoons, thundering all along the way. Double bell euphoniums and big bassoons, each bassoon having his big fat say.
The Music Man was a musical written by Meredith Wilson and Franklin Lacey, with music and lyrics by Meredith Wilson and Renee Wilson, and now for the 2021 revival, Mark Shaman. The revival opened on Broadway at the Winter Garden Theater in previews on December 20th, 2021, later officially opening February 10th, 2022. The production was met with mixed to negative reviews, but nearly sold out every night of its running, taking in $3.5 million in ticket sales during the week of March 22nd, 2022, more than any show since the pandemic began. The show closed on January 15, 2023, after 808 regular and 34 preview performances. The plot of the musical is: there's trouble in River City when con artist Harold Hill arrives in town. There's only one problem with his plans. He falls in love with the straight-laced librarian Marion. Featuring songs such as 76 Trombones, Trouble Till There Was You, Pick a Little, and Gary, Indiana. That is the official playbill description of this revival. Andrew, before we go any further, I do want to read a letter that Meredith Wilson wrote to any director of future productions of The Music Man. And it's at the beginning of the MPI books, and I feel like it's important to read this to contextualize my opinions here.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
He wrote, "Dear Director, The Music Man was intended to be a valentine, not a caricature. Please do not let the actors, particularly Zanita, Mayor Shin, and Mrs. Shin, who takes herself quite seriously, mug or reach for comedy effect. The Del Sarte ladies should be natural and sincere, never raucous, shrewish, or comic per se. The humor of this piece depends on its technical faithfulness to the real small-town Iowans of 1912, who certainly did not think they were funny at all. Faithfully, Meredith Wilson." This production spat on that and wiped their ass with it.
Oh, fuck. Damn, he just goes for it. Okay. That's a way to open.
I feel like that is me reaching a thesis statement at the start of this, so people kind of know where I'm coming from here. So you and I have previously done an episode on The Music Man, the original musical, and we also did a Patreon commentary of the 2003 Matthew Broderick ABC film.
Yes.
So we have talked about this to great deal, but I feel like I still haven't said my piece, especially when it comes to this 2020's revival, nearly 100 years, or over 100 years after when this story takes place. It is interesting. So, what's going on with this revival, Andrew, from your point of view?
I guess I might not have as in-depth of thoughts as you, but my takeaway was that Hugh Jackman has very little charisma as this character, and what was her name? Sutton Foster?
Yeah.
She does not know what she's supposed to be doing as Marion, like at all.
Mhm.
And the whole entire thing just falls flat because of that. And I really just think it's the Music Man is so dependent on those leads carrying with charm and charisma that when you don't have it, it doesn't work. The Music Man just doesn't not work. I also think that Hugh Jackman just doesn't have the voice for this role. It feels like he's holding back an accent the entire time. I don't know what his accent actually is. He's like Australian or something, but
Yep.
it feels like the entire time he's trying to hold that accent back when he's singing. All of the songs are like slowed down. I just didn't enjoy it. I don't know. This is not a good version of the Music Man. I don't know what else to say.
Let's talk about the production history with this show.
Sure.
So, this show was announced in 2019. The year before everything shut down. In the time it was meant to open, it was going to be produced by Scott Rudin. Then the pandemic hit. A lot of things were thrown into haywire. And also, during that period, the Winter Garden Theater had Beetlejuice in it. And they had a contract that was ending. It was dependent on how well Beetlejuice was doing. And when they signed the Music Man up to replace Beetlejuice, it wasn't doing very well. But then after the Tonys, Beetlejuice's numbers upticked. They wanted to renegotiate their contract. They refused because they wanted the Music Man, and Beetlejuice was basically being evicted despite doing very good numbers.
Mistake.
Not a good look. Like visually, it's not a good look. And it kind of bummed out a lot of the fans, which are intense for Beetlejuice. I'm saying this literally the day after I saw the national tour, and there was at least dozens of people dressed in full costume regalia. That show hit with the zeitgeist in a way. So good for that. Then the pandemic hit, and it became a little less apparent what's going to happen with either of those shows. But during the freeze of entirety of Broadway, the show's main producer, Scott Rudin, was revealed to have inappropriate misconduct behind the scenes of all his shows and was replaced. And there was a lot of conversation of whether the actors would still be involved. Scott Rudin was involved, but eventually Scott Rudin was ousted and replaced with Kate Horton.
Okay.
So that was another thing that came about. But it really brought in a lot of bad mood towards this production, the people behind it, and things of that sort. The pandemic ends. The show starts opening. This is one of the most successful shows to reopen, despite, not getting very good reviews, and we'll talk about that when we get to the reviews section. And there was a lot of small petty things like that happened during its run, like especially with its closing. So it announced a closing date, and then Beetlejuice announced a closing date 3 days later, so it would have outlasted the Music Man. A little bit of a fun petty jab, and then the Music Man extends one date past Beetlejuice. So there is still kind of shit that goes on like that. On top of that, you have a lot of other things like Hugh Jackman performing the Music Man at the Tonys while very sick with COVID. Shit like that.
Jeez, Hugh, what are you doing?
So not a great look for a lot of people involved with this show. On top of that, and I wanted to paint that with the context of those things happened, and they're not impacting my personal opinion on this. Because that does not... Things like, this could have been the best show ever, and those things would have still happened, and I would try to go into this and still see it objectively.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people think, oh, you're just positive, you're a Beetlejuice stan, and you had these thoughts. No, that's not where I'm coming through this. I came in as a Music Man fan. And this is relying on the star power of its two leads rather than the talent of its two leads. I mean, we're both.
We like Beetlejuice and Music Man, because you're allowed to do that.
You are. Sincerely. This show kind of makes me question whether or not I like the Music Man anymore. Which I did not expect it to do. So, this show both is using its source material to make these actors, like, fit these actors, like, personalities, but also deeply is embarrassed of its source material and ashamed with source material in a way where it's both trying to take this beautiful like sphere object and make it into a cube, but it wasn't meant to be this.
Yeah.
And that is where I'm sitting with this, and it's one of the most frustrating watches. And if you haven't already, probably go revisit our Music Man episode where I talk about like a deep personal history with this show and a deep connection with this show.
Music Man
quite in depth
is so like quaint. I don't even know how exactly to describe it. It's like it's purely charm. It's got this small town charm to it, and that's why it really works. And it feels like they didn't want it to be that anymore.
Yeah, so let's talk about it from the start, even. Our two leads. You brought up Hugh Jackman and Sutton Foster. Hugh Jackman, on paper, sounds like a perfect Harold Hill. Like, without seeing it, I'm like, that sounds like both it would make money and would suit his strength. He has sung Rock Island with rappers, and he's really dedicated to this. Like, The Greatest Showman was basically his audition to be Harold Hill.
Yeah, it would make sense, which is why it's odd that it just doesn't work. I don't know. There's scenes where he fits the character, like, and it's mostly when he's not singing.
Yeah, because he's insisting that he's going to belt songs that are meant to be spoken in a weird way.
Like, so many of Harold Hill's songs are just like fast talking, essentially, like, because he's literally a fast talking scam artist. Like, that's his character. That's the character. But then when Hugh Jackman starts singing, he's like, oh, da, 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 and it's like, dude, like, this isn't it.
Yes, and it feels like, well, we got a Hugh Jackman. He really wants to sing and dance and be that singy dancy guy. But these were written for Robert Preston, a guy who isn't much of a singer. He was just coasting on personality and charm and talking through the roles, which worked. It worked.
Well, yeah, because he's literally supposed to. That's the character. That's what he is. He's selling people stuff. He's the car salesman, the sleazy car salesman that you find, and they're like, they talk really fast because they want to get to the point of sale as quick as possible, you know?
Exactly. But then it was meant to be co-opted by Marion the librarian, who is this like soaring soprano, Barbara Cook, Shirley Jones, really these like My White Knight is this beautiful, beautiful tune, like gorgeous. And I think that they reversed their casting because then you've got Sutton Foster, who is charm in a bottle. Like, that is her thing. Like, from Shrek the Musical to Thoroughly Modern Millie, for not being as bad as it is, but she is the charming part of that. But she's also a belter more than a soprano. She's not a soprano, so they had to change the range of this role and change the attitude of this role, because Marion and every other production is this stiff upper, like, I am better than everyone else. Like the entire piano lesson is that she's got this like high standard for how she's living her life, very type A. And Sutton Foster is playing like the every girl, like the cool, quirky, I wear thick rimmed glasses, I'm cool, and I'm it doesn't fit the characters. However, if you had put Sutton Foster as Harold Hill, I would have bought that. Sincerely. I think that would have been fine casting, but where she is now, no. And Hugh Jackman is this guy that wants to sing these big legato notes, and they give him this fast-talking role when he has an accent that he's barely got a hold of.
Yeah, which gives us probably the worst version of Trouble ever.
Yes. Matthew Broderick. You sent me a text while watching this with a picture of Matthew Broderick and Thanos saying, perhaps I was too harsh on you.
Honestly, like, the Matthew Broderick one, and I'm not going to go back and be like, oh, well, now it's good, but it wasn't. No. It wasn't good, and it's mostly because Matthew Broderick isn't that charismatic in it. But like, that version understands what Music Man is supposed to be.
76 trombones led the big parade, with 110 cornets close at hand. They were followed by rows and rows of the finest virtuosos, the cream of every famous band.
For example, Kristen Chenoweth, a very short, very personality-based actress, like she is Glinda in Wicked. She is very much a goofy, bubbly personality. She played the stiff, better than thou, like, attitude of Marion and sang like an angel in that role. It might have been miscast based on what her persona is, but she played the role based on the text on the page. Sutton Foster ignores the text on the page and plays it to her own strengths, and it doesn't fit.
The director of this version of Music Man needed to step in and be like, no, you don't get to just do what you want to do. You have to play the roles given to you here. For both of the leads, not just Sutton Foster, but also Hugh Jackman. Like, they slowed down Trouble so that he could sing it. Like, slowed it down.
And the point of Trouble is, look at how fast he's talking. Isn't that crazy?
It's mind-boggling. Like, why would you? It's unbelievable.
Is it? And the question is it because Hugh Jackman couldn't sing it, or is it because they wanted to add dancing to it, which they did? Every song that now has dancing in some form.
Every song has a fucking dance break. It's crazy.
And that's not even talking the quote-unquote woke changes to the lyrics and content and narrative.
All right, we're going full Rush Limbaugh now. Let's go.
I don't. I mean, there's so many other things, but I think this is the thing that a lot of folks are relying on, especially after the Cast album came out, is lyric changes, where these people in the text of the story are supposed to be kind of low-down hicks. They are
the story takes
not
place
the most
in
educated
1912.
people. Yes.
And
I think take a look at the Oklahoma revival that we talked about with Emily Clark a few years ago, where they didn't change a single word, but they changed its meaning, and it means more because they were creative. They wanted to find the least creative way to put on this show in a modern day, and their answer was anything that could be slightly offensive, we're going to change. Whether it be calling ragtime shameless music and changing it to modern music in Trouble, or rewriting all of Shapoopy, a song about a guy trying to basically like wear down a girl that's like playing hard to get, and make it all about a guy that asks consent a bunch. And the point is, Shapoopy in and of itself is not a song that endorses that behavior. It's just like, man, look at how backward in their morals these people are. It bothers me a lot, because it removes you from 1912 Iowa and brings you to 2022, where we're putting the values that we have today onto work from almost 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Which we shouldn't do. We don't do that with Shakespeare. We reinterpret. We change things. We cast based on that. So let's go for a different version of the Music Man that makes some bold choices but doesn't change a word. Recently, like a few years before this, they did a production of The Music Man starring Norm Lewis as Harold Hill, who is a black man, and doing that one act alone brings a new context to everything. Like, that is a bold statement, and making this, as far as I know, outside of maybe Zanita, there's not one person of color in the main cast.
In the main cast, no. There are people.
They're like ensemble members.
Yeah, ensemble
but no
members,
one like
but
with a name.
Yeah, no.
And I think that's just cowardly, in my opinion. Cowardly and really unflattering.
And then you hide behind these lame rewrites of the lyrics, which
corporate rewrites, which is different than creative ones.
Yeah. Like, I'm not saying that there's no way you could rewrite a song like Shapoopy and have it be fun and also not as problematic, because, I mean, admittedly, it's a song that has some stuff in it that, isn't good.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's no way you could rewrite it, but the way that they did it is like the worst. It's like a corporate HR team got together and was like, let's write a song about don't do sexual harassment, and they did that song, and then they put it in The Music Man.
So let's think about it like this. Here's what I would do if I were Jerry Zaks, the director of this, and I was coming in, and they were like, well, we got the Shapoopy song, and it's kind of got these, like, non-consent issues, like, a woman who kissed on the very first date is usually a hussy, and a woman who kissed on the second time around is anything but fussy. But a woman who waits the third time around, head in the clowns, feet on the ground, she's a girl he's glad he's found, she's his Shapoopy. You know what I would do? We have the comedy character singing this. For each line he says, have a lady slap him in the face.
And it would work. It would be comedic as well. And then he could like stumble it off and be like, and then just keep going anyways. Yeah. It would be funny.
Exactly. It would both comment and like, yeah, we know this is inappropriate, but it's not putting it in modern terms because they could very well have reacted that way in 1912 times. It's not taking you out of the world you're living in, and it's still playing by the rules of today and addressing that, yeah, this isn't the correct behavior. I'm sick. Okay. I'm not talking anti-woke or anything like that, but I am sick of the idea that we can't show anyone doing any negative behavior because you would interpret it as an endorsement of that behavior.
I completely agree, and I don't think that it's a quote-unquote woke thing.
No.
I think it's and I think you said...
cowardly thing.
Yeah, it's like you're afraid of the backlash because you think you're going to do it poorly or something like that. There needs to be a place to show things that are bad, and people like that exist in the real world, you know, and like, especially when you're doing a piece about the past, like tons of guys had these opinions. Like, of course they're going to sing a song like this. Honestly, it's tame compared to what some guys today believe.
Sincerely, yes. There's no like get in the kitchen things, and there's no like, but that being said, there are changes I think are good and don't hurt the narrative of this. Speaking of one, there is a scene in the original version where the mayor's wife dresses up as a Native American and they sing like Wonton Knee, and they get rid of it and just make her dress up as George Washington in this one. That is a fine change that I fully endorse and support. That was a smart move.
Yeah, because there's no reason to show that, and it doesn't add anything, and yeah.
And it's not commenting on anything either. It's not whereas Shapoopy is kind of like, yeah, it's not endorsing that.
It's a whole thing, and there's an argument, and I think that people are going to say like, oh, we don't want it changed at all, and we agree with the problematic, but honestly, I would be fine if they changed stuff. I just think that this particular rewrite is fucking horrendous.
Mm-hmm. But let's take a look at a stage version. So this came out in 2022, was meant to be released in 2020, but, you know, pandemic happened. In February of 2019, Kennedy Center did a production of The Music Man with Norm Lewis, Jesse Mueller. Didn't change a single word. Didn't change a word of the book. No one complained about jack shit in that show. Not a single complaint was registered. No one.
It's really it's not that problematic of a show.
No, but they overcorrect in a way. Like, a small correction, fine. Like, getting rid of the Wonton Knee girls, fine. Good move. I support. Getting rid of ragtime, shameless music, like, he's playing to their racism. That's the point.
Yeah. I honestly think that that's fine, and honestly getting rid of that is a weird change. It's like, what are we going to deny that people had those opinions in 1912? Like, are we going to just pretend that wasn't the case?
And then let's talk about things that ruin the structure of this show for a second. So in our first episode, I talked at length about how beautifully structured this show is by Meredith Wilson, and he has a he might rely on it a little too much, I'm not gonna lie, but he loves setting up a song and then setting up another song and then showing you that they fit together perfectly. Like, that is one of the basic things. So we got first, Goodnight My Someone is obviously 76 trombones, and they show that off at the end. They are the same song, and it's almost played as a twist. Then we have Goodnight Ladies and Pick a Little Talk a Little. We set up both those songs individually, then you play them together, they fit together, they were meant to do that. Then we have Light a Rose and Will I Ever Tell You? You have Light a Rose set up, then you have Will I Ever Tell You, then they play together, and it's beautiful. There's another song in there. They don't do it, they don't play it together, but I think it shows a deeper connection between these two, which is Sadder But Wiser Girl, which is Harold Hill and Marcellus singing about like what Harold thinks he wants in a woman. And then you have My White Knight, which is Marion singing about what she thinks she wants in a man, and that they fit together the way they were written.
Smile and I grin when the gal with a touch of sin walks in. I hope and I pray for Hester to win just one more A. The sadder but wiser girl for me. The sadder but wiser for me.
They rewrote My White Knight, so now it doesn't do that anymore. and they made it a patter song because Sutton Foster can't sing in a soprano without it sounding bad. So they turned it into this really annoying patter song, and My White Knight is such a beautiful number. And I brought this up in our previous episode that even the movie cut My White Knight and rewrote it into Being in Love, which Emily Clark likes better, but I prefer better My White Knight because they fit into each other and I have that dumb brain thing.
Yeah, stuff like that is like just a misunderstanding of the music of the show itself.
Can I just talk about this production in general, outside of the cast, the changes, and the basic structure?
Sure.
Let's talk about the set design, which is very cheap looking.
I didn't want to say anything, but it's literally just like paintings and that's it. Like, and that's fine. But
I wouldn't know what to say to do for the Music Man, but I did feel like, what am I paying for here? Just to be spat on by Hugh Jackman?
it's literally, yeah, it's like they didn't put any money into the sets at all. Like, I'm trying to think of what set looked the best, and honestly, it was probably the train car at the very beginning.
It was either the train car or the gymnasium.
Yeah, it's like after he gets out of the train car at the very beginning, immediately he like walks out and it's just like he meets some woman and it's literally just a painting behind him. It's just like a field painted and it's like, really?
It is very ugly. And then actual full numbers are just done against like a wood backdrop.
Oh, yeah.
Take, for instance, Satyr by Weiser is done entirely just on like a wood backdrop with nothing on it.
I don't know what they're doing here.
I think about how they were very insistent on kicking Beetlejuice out, which it's not a perfect show, but it has some of the most interesting set designs I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, yeah. They were going to replace Beetlejuice, which is probably it's not like an amazing show, but it's one of the most visually interesting shows that was on Broadway at that time.
And the way that the sets move from one thing to another so seamlessly, like you and I saw that live, it was pretty amazing to watch. And I don't see a reason why Music Man needed such a big stage just for Hugh Jackman to sing You Got Trouble, when they could have easily fit it into a smaller stage with a good amount of audience and still sold out every night.
Yeah, especially when the sets that apparently they wanted to use were literally just like wood backdrops and paintings. You were going to replace Beetlejuice with this?
That being said, stars are expensive. Hugh Jackman probably wasn't a cheap get. Sutton Foster as well. She's on the continual rise.
They had to spend a lot of money to ruin Music Man like this.
Yeah. It's pretty rough. That being said, was there anything that you liked? Because I have a couple.
That I liked. I mean, is there anything I liked more than previous versions or
just a thing that you enjoyed?
Okay. I mean, I like the Music Man, like the plot in general. So it works for me in that way. Like it's still mostly there. Like it's not like they completely scrapped all of the Music Man and made some new thing that's terrible. Like it is still mostly there. It's just I don't know. I don't think I can say I liked anything because most of the time I'm just thinking, damn, I'd rather be watching the Music Man.
Yeah. One or two things I kind of liked. I think Hugh Jackman is a fine dancer. When he is dancing, he's keeping up and he is not lagging behind.
Yeah.
That is like one of the things where it's like if he can't sing, he's really good at dancing.
And they do add a lot of dancing. There's more dance breaks, so maybe that was their attempt to lean into what they do well.
But the thing is, Marion, Sutton Foster, also an incredible dancer, Thoroughly Modern Millie, big dance show. Marion is not a character that dances of her own free will.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't work. It didn't fit the character, and yet they keep shoehorning her into these big, goofy dance numbers.
So the whole time I was watching this, I really felt like, and I think part of it is, we're watching a version that's, you can hear the audience, you can tell what their reactions are. And the entire time I'm just thinking, this is a show for Broadway tourists. Like,
yep.
They've heard of Hugh Jackman. That's the Wolverine guy. They're going to go see a Broadway show. They know what the Music Man is. And then Hugh Jackman shows up and everybody cheers. Hugh Jackman does a little jig and everybody cheers.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. So right before we're recording this episode, I did a little petty post about breaking in the theater. And I'm curious as to your thoughts on this, but let me give the context for this. So in every performance of The Music Man, starting at a certain point, Sutton Foster and Hugh Jackman intentionally break character and start laughing in the middle of a scene, like midway through Act 2. And the audience cheers because they think it's a big, special moment that only they got to see. Like, oh my God, I saw the actors break character. That's so crazy. But it isn't. It's planned, and it's there to basically wake the audience up and give them a special Broadway moment. And that feels a little cheap and cringy to me, especially because their breaking performance is just not that good.
It's also right in the middle of like a dramatic scene where
Yes.
it's uncomfortable and strange that they would suddenly start laughing.
It's a scene where he's basically accusing her of having sex with her dad's best friend, which in the subtext of it, she might be the true father of Winthrop, but that's subtext.
Yeah.
And it's taken very seriously in every other production because it is kind of like them talking about their body count with each other sexually. But then you throw in a funny jig in the middle of it and the audience is screaming and applauding because they're bored at a serious scene.
It's very clearly staged because he does this actual like choreographed little dance. It was really strange. I know that you got some pushback on Twitter from it though, but I don't know if I can't say I agree with the pushback. I found it very awkward, and I don't think that it's a good thing to put into your show.
So they kept saying like, well, they did that in Hairspray, and I'm like, I didn't like it when they did it in Hairspray. What's your point?
My actual thought is breaking like that is a bad thing. You shouldn't break character if you don't absolutely have to. And if you're trying to make a cohesive piece of immersive art, which Broadway shows absolutely are, you should never break character. You know, like that's my thought. And if it does happen, it should actually be like a once in a million thing that just, you know, sucks that it happened, but it did. And maybe you can laugh about it, maybe you can't, but it shouldn't be planned.
I agree. It's like SNL when the sketch isn't working, like when you just start laughing.
Yeah. I don't understand why you would plan something like that, because generally that's something that would ruin a scene and would, you know, break immersion and all that. And because you're planning it, it's just strange. It's very strange because now it's part of the show. Part of the show is that the character now becomes someone else for a couple moments and then goes back to being the character. It's like, what is happening?
So I called it manipulative and cynical, and just because you've got actors that are slightly charming doesn't make it any less so, which I still stand by. Someone replied, I would argue that theater itself is manipulative. The performers are attempting to elicit emotional response from the audience. I don't see how this is any different.
Yeah, I don't think I agree.
I don't think I agree either. I think that this, especially for a show that has been going on for the most of a century, for a good part of a century, and didn't need a fucking break in it, I don't think that it helps, honestly.
Yeah. No, it's you don't plan stuff like that. You don't.
Yeah, it just shows a lack of faith in the material, which is shown in basically every other facet of their attempt to revive this material as well. But who cares what we think? Let's compare our opinions to those of the New York critics when this came out. It's time for previews.
It's time for previews. It's time for previews.
This is from Jesse Green of the New York Times. He wrote this review and he said, there comes a moment in the latest Broadway production of Meredith Wilson's Music Man when high spirits, terrific dancing, and big stars align in an extended marvel of showbiz salesmanship. Unfortunately, that moment is the curtain call. Until then, the musical, which opened on Thursday night at the Winter Garden Theater, only intermittently offers the joys we expect from a classic revival starring Hugh Jackman and Sutton Foster, especially one so obviously patterned on the success of another classic revival, Hello, Dolly, a few seasons back. Jackman mostly suppresses his shaky charisma here. This is not a star turn like Dolly Levi, or for that matter, Peter Allen in The Boy from Oz. Instead, he seems to see Hill as a character role, a cool manipulator and traveling horn dog who is being unprincipled, but must also be unlovable. The result is a smart and strangely inward performance. By turning away from the audience, he not only undersells big numbers like He Got Trouble, in which Hill spellbinds the citizens of River City into believing that the recent arrival of a pool table caused juvenile delinquency and that a boys' band is the solution, but also undersells us. As a town librarian who sees through him immediately, Foster does not have that problem. Her take on Marion is witty and front-facing throughout. She fully commits to the seriousness, but also to the size of the comedy, letting it arise from the big eternal conflicts of a woman with standards too high for her own happiness. Though Foster can sing the required notes, she really is a belter with a mezzo quality to her voice regardless of the pitch. In her high-flung songs, she works too hard to force the bloom, when what's needed is ease and exuberance. My White Knight, an aria that is usually a rangy highlight for the role, is performed here in a lower key and as fast as possible. It comes off less as a stratospheric dream than a street-level race, making Marion sound, and thus feel, pretty much like everyone else, as stated earlier.
Yeah.
I suppose you could argue that an old-fashioned show deserves an old-fashioned staging, like the kind that worked for Dolly, and it's certainly true that The Music Man, as written, includes some antique elements that give us pause today. This production rightly omits, for instance, the Wonton E-Girls and the local wigwam of the Hiwatha and their Indian war dance. Even though such ludicrous appropriations are authentic to the setting, a musical comedy needs to not be a documentary. But omit too much, and what's left is texture. Running shorter than its advertised length, the revival cuts a lot, eliminating even minor details that might cause offense. The boy who is secretly dating the mayor's daughter is no longer one of them, the son of one of them day laborers south of town, presumably because the suggestion of class prejudice is too hot for a comedy to handle in 2022.
I didn't even catch that. That's a good catch there. Wow.
Same with the show's treatment of men's casual harassment of women. You can't really remove it from the main story. Hill's modus operandi involves seducing piano teachers and leaving them flat. At one point, he refers to Marion as his commission. In light of that, it seems foolish merely to change a lyric here or there. In the dopey dance tune Shapoopy, the couplet, "The girl who's hard to get, but you can win her yet," has suddenly become "the boy who's seen the light to treat a woman right." What world are we in? If we're going to keep selling classic shows, we have to find meaningful new ways to package them, even for the best salesman among us. And Jackman surely is that. The territory is changing fast.
Yeah, I think they nailed it here, honestly.
Yeah, Jesse Green doesn't always hit it, but this one, he hit hard, and I agree with almost every word they say.
Yeah, and oh my goodness, it's true. It's so weird that they would change Shapoopy, but the show requires that. Like, that is part of the tone of the show, like that Harold Hill is someone who treats women that way. And sure, he learns to treat one woman right, but like, why are we gonna cut this song and make it into this weird 2023 progressive anthem stuck in a show that is surrounded by people that have the exact opposite attitude at all other times? At every other point in the show, they have the exact opposite attitude, but then Shapoopy shows up and now they have this attitude. It doesn't make any fucking sense.
It's horrendous, sincerely, as someone that watching it was not a fun experience. And it really wanted it to be. They sincerely wanted this to be the feel-good show that, like, oh my god, the energy and oh my god, everything. If I'm gonna be positive, I really like the kid actors. I thought, like, all the like little kids running around the stage, that was cute. They were fine.
Yeah, that's... You're reaching now, though.
I liked the mayor and I liked Marcellus. I thought they played their roles well. All right, time to compare our opinions instead to the folks on Letterboxd.com in the game 1 star or 5 star. All right, Andrew, I'm going to read you real Letterboxd reviews, and you have to tell me whether they were a 1 star or 5 star just based on the review alone. All right, are you ready?
I am ready.
I laugh, I cried, I shapoopied.
5 stars.
That is correct. Robert Preston is so sexual. Nut?
5 stars.
That is correct. My mom was insistent that we needed to study up before we saw Hugh on Broadway.
1 star.
That is correct. He's a what?
5 stars?
That is a 1 star.
I thought that was a reference to the show, so I figured it would be.
It was. The boys' band at the end is half 4-year-olds and half 27-year-old professional dancers.
That's true. And 5 stars.
That is a 1 star.
Fuck. How do you not like that?
I don't know. I was on the phone for half of it. Kind of wish these songs were on Spotify.
I thought they are. Are they not?
Not this version. This one's the Matthew Broderick version.
Oh. Okay, 1 star for the Matthew Broderick version.
Yeah. That was probably the giveaway there.
Yeah.
And the final one. Amaryllis is a bitch.
5 stars.
That is correct, and you have won Preview's Letterboxd game.
I wasn't competing against anyone, but I absolutely won. I definitely won.
All right, let's go into a mid-show and then talk about some of these songs.
Today's show is brought to you by the extremely kind donations by our donors at Patreon. Check out our Patreon if you want to donate some money and keep our show running, and also check out some extra content that we have. We have full commentaries on the Rugrats movies coming out. So definitely go and check that out. Our current patrons are Melissa Goldman, Danielle Renix, Just the Stampede, Ewan Cassidy, Monica Thoreau, Mina Maneri, Brent Black, Nathaniel Stacy Coombe, Joseph Evans Green, Mary Lou Choquette, John Vanals, Russ Walker, Musical Hell, Kyle Summers, Janae C., Scoot in the Technicolor Dreamcoat, Liz Lim, Nothing is Certain Except Beth and Taxes, Thespian, Ren Cullen, Rafael Martinez Stelaz, Jessica T., Mitchell Young, Chai Teacup, Katie McDonough, Chris Marcotte, Kiji Marie Anastasio, Trevi Joseph, Leela, RJ Noriga, Charlie B., Bjorn Hermans, Erica S., Toriana Frazier, Sammy the Most Lopez, Liana Morton, Kylie Blazier, Cinemageddon Reviews, Villainous Miss, Sophina Ali, The Omega Geek, Paige Pearson, Maddie Wargle, Eliza Erdman, Anna Loskatova, Cheska Veray, Sarah Den Blaker, Evan Ball, Zachary Torres, Gathering Party Before Venturing Forth, Rora Marasso, Mara Forloin, Captain Rodtastic, and Lisa L.
These folks give us a little extra financial support that helps us keep the lights on here at Musicals with Cheese. If you would like to join them in supporting us and get all these fun perks, come join us over at Patreon.
Rugrats, I did mention it.
Okay, let's get back to the show. So, a lot of these are fairly untouched. But let's talk about You Got Trouble really quick.
You're Mr. Dunlop.
Yep.
Either you're closing your eyes to a situation you don't wish to acknowledge, or you're not aware of the caliber of disaster indicated by the presence of a pool table in your community. Well, you got trouble, my friend. Right here is trouble right here in River City. Why, sure, I'm a billiard player, certainly mighty proud to say. I'm always mighty proud to say it. I consider that the hours I spend with a cue in my hand are golden. Help to cultivate horse sense and a cool head and a keen eye. Did you ever take and try and give an ironclad leave to yourself from a 3-rail billiard shot? Just as I say it takes judgment, brains, and maturity to score in a ball-climb game, I say that any boob can take and shove a ball in a pocket. And I call that sloth, the first big step on the road to the depths of degradation. They say first, it's a little medicinal wine from a teaspoon, then beer from a bottle, and the next thing you know, your son is playing for money in a pinchback suit and listening to some big out-of-town Jasper telling him all about horse race gambling. Not some
Holy fucking shit. This is, I mean, I said it earlier, this is probably the worst version of Trouble ever. You don't feel that that it's actually being sold. Like, you don't feel that anyone would be like, this guy has a point, you know? Because he doesn't have that kind of charming, quick talk to him that, like, keeps it going.
Because the reason why he's talking so fast is so no one else can get a word in.
Exactly. He needs to be going past everybody, and then everyone's, like, getting riled up about it. It doesn't feel like that's what's going on.
Like, there is a difference between either you're closing your eyes to a situation you do not wish to acknowledge, or you are not aware of the caliber of disaster indicated by the presence of a pool table in your community, and either you're closing your eyes to a situation you do not wish to acknowledge, or you are unaware of the caliber of disaster. Like, there is a different
There's
vibe
a very
between
different
those two.
vibe. And this is Harold Hill's and Hugh Jackman's, like, first big number.
Yes.
And it does not sell the show at all. Like, it's bad, and I think it colors the rest of Hugh Jackman's performance for the rest of the show, because the whole time I'm just like, oh, this is that, like, slow talking fucking snooze fest guy.
It really, and maybe it's because they wanted to add dancing or something to it, but it's somehow, I don't know, it just leaves you feeling empty inside by the time it's over. Let me talk about 76 trombones for a second.
Well, you can't play music with a piece of paper.
76 trombones led the big parade, with 110 cornets close at hand.
Hooray! Hooray! That was great, Squidward. All those wrong notes you play made it sound more original.
What? I didn't play any wrong notes.
They were followed by rows and rows of the finest virtuoso,
Yeah, see, you're playing it like this.
the cream of every famous band.
When ordinarily it goes like this.
76 trombones led the big parade, with 110 cornets close at hand.
I'm partially doing it in the key of A minor myself.
76 trombones led the big parade, with 110 cornets close at hand. They were followed by rows and rows of the finest virtuosos, the cream of every famous band.
Specifically the opening, like he gives this long monologue, like where he's like, I can deal with the trouble friends with the wave of my hand, this very hand. Like that monologue's fine. But when it gets to like the proper song where we get to the chorus, he does it a cappella to start with. And that is horrifying. Because once again, it defeats the purpose of bum ba dum ba dum ba dum ba dum bum bum da 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 ba, and it keeps that energy going. And so this is like bum ba dum ba dum ba dum ba dum, silence. Sax trombone. Like, it leaves no impact. There is no, it's a build to nothing.
Yeah, it's like, and I think what they were going for is like a crowd pleaser moment where it's like Hugh Jackman, the guy on stage, and it's listen to his voice by itself, but it doesn't work. Because that's not, the show is not about that. The show isn't about how good Harold Hill can sing or whatever.
Well,
the
if
show
it was,
is,
he wouldn't even be doing that.
it's about the energy that he brings to the town and how he is selling a boys band to this town that doesn't need it. And you don't get the feeling that he's really convincing anyone because he's not convincing the audience.
Yeah. And sincerely, the problem with Hugh Jackman is there are moments Hugh Jackman plays very well. It's none of the salesman moments.
No, it's usually when he's with Marion that I think it works a little better.
No, I don't even think that. You know when it really works?
Really?
When he's with Winthrop. That's when he works.
That is probably the best, you're right. I don't think any of the scenes where he sings work very well.
Yeah. Except Sad About Wiser Girl, because that's like a proper song, but even that, it's not good. I want to talk about My White Knight for a brief moment, if you would indulge me for a second.
I know you have a lot of complaints here, so why don't you just...
Like, do you remember that song from the Broadway show?
I don't remember it well because I'm more familiar with the movie.
Right. That's perfectly fine. I'm going to actually, because I don't want to compare, like, two cast recordings, because I feel like that's not really fair. So I'm going to compare two productions. So I'm comparing Sutton Foster to the last Broadway production, which is Rebecca Luker. May she rest in peace. Who played Marion. So here's Rebecca Luker singing My White Knight.
Not a Lancelot, nor an angel with wings, just someone to love me, who is not ashamed of a few nice things. My white knight, what my heart would say if it only knew how. Please, dear Venus, show me now.
Very calm soprano, very like pleasant to the ear, like very different sound than Harold.
Well, very different than Harold Hill probably in this version where he's a fast-talking,
Yes.
every song is a patter song kind of thing.
And then you have this version.
All I want is a plain man, a modest man, a quiet man, a straightforward and honest man with habits that do not exclude the occasional reading of a book I do not yearn for, nor do I await any handsome hand-kissing wine, tasting silk pillow, hook a smoker.
But darling,
No world traveler, in fact, or fancy, no show-off, no clothes horse. He need not necessarily be in uniform.
know, dear,
I
but-
await no clean-cut, weather-beaten, square-rigged, white duck pants and tennis shoes. No plumed hat, no splendid insignia, National Guardsman, Fire Chief or Highlander. He from the Arabian Nights or the French Foreign Legion.
It's literally not the same song.
She is talking like Harold Hill, and if everyone talks like Harold Hill, why is Marion different?
It's like she's trying to sell her mother on the idea of her perfect boyfriend or whatever. It's like she's trying to like sell like a salesman sell. You know?
Exactly. Which is why I stand by Sutton Foster would have been a great Harold Hill.
Maybe they need to redo this and that would be progressive.
That would have been a take, at least.
Yeah.
Like, imagine that. Like, Sutton Foster, a female Harold Hill coming into town and doing, like, all that stuff. That would have been a big take, bring asses into the seat, and give you the star-studded revival you wanted.
But that's not what we got.
No, because they took every cowardly outlook that they possibly could, and now we got what we got. And once again, as I said before, it defeats the purpose of the songs fitting in with each other.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's literally just a different song. Listening to them, you can barely even tell that they're supposed to be the same song.
Yep. If I am going to be positive, they didn't kill Light a Rose for me. That song still works. Still my favorite song in the show, and they didn't ruin it.
Light a rose, I'm home again, Rose, to get the sun back in the sky. Light a rose, I'm home again, Rose, around a thousand kisses shed. Do I love you? Don't do. Yes, I can hear the chapel bells.
And I'll bravely tell you, but only when we're dreaming again.
Good job, guys. You got
It's just
1 point.
a barbershop quartet song, though. Like,
Yeah, but the point counterpoint with Marion, and I did kind of like that they staged it and gave her the beat of stamping the books. There, I said a positive, guys.
they did a good thing. One good thing.
Okay, here's the other thing, and I didn't bring this up earlier, and I wish I had. Both they add things, but then by the time we get to like our climax, it feels like we're on a speed run to get to the end. Like from the point that Harold is discovered to the end, it feels like everyone's just trying to get out of their scene as quick as they can. Despite they add the weirdest new edition scene where we have Charlie, the anvil salesman, who pops up and just turns in Harold and then leaves in the original musical. Here, he makes some comment about Marion, and then Harold Hill beats the shit out of him, like physically assaults him. New scene, very, very weird.
I actively felt the rush as well, because it started getting towards like the end of the recording, and I'm like, when is he going to teach them how to play the instruments? Like, when does that happen? And it doesn't happen until like probably 30 seconds before the fucking show's over.
Yeah, this is not a good revival. I feel strangely about the fact that we did this, but I felt like we were not supposed to cover this week. I changed this last minute because I had so much I wanted to get off my chest about this.
Jess was upset. And to be fair, I don't think this is one of the worst things we've ever covered.
No.
But I think it is
the most wasted potential.
Yeah, it's the most wasted potential. It took something that we know is a simple and good story and somehow fucks it up. And it's like, how do you fuck up the Music Man? You don't even need your lead to be a great singer in the Music Man. Literally.
Seth MacFarlane was right there, guys. He knows all the words
Seth
already.
MacFarlane would actually be perfect. It's not even... And, like, that's not saying, like, because he's a great singer or because he's, like, amazing.
Mr.
It's just
Family Guy.
This is such an easy win. It's an easy win. And you fucked it up.
And you could have had a more comedic Marion that still was able to sing. Laura Benanti exists and would probably do the role for the right money and would get asses in seats. She's been on a lot of sitcoms, probably more than Sutton Foster has.
And I think what it really comes down to is they didn't have a reason to do this. There's no reason that this revival exists other than the fact that they got two big stars and wanted to just make a bunch of money. Because they don't have a take.
Yeah.
There's nothing new here. It's literally they're just doing the old one with worse shit. They just make everything worse. They don't have like an actual thing to say or a new direction they wanted to take it.
I know you were lukewarm on the Company revival, but at least that had a take and something to say.
Absolutely. The Company revival, I wouldn't say had no reason to exist. Like, they actually had, something. It's not like there was literally nothing there and this just felt like a cash grab. This actually, while I was watching it, felt like, okay, they just want to get the tourists' asses in the seats, and that's it. Like, they wanted people to come and see, like, oh, what are we going to see for our Broadway show while we're visiting New York City? Oh, I know the Music Man. I know Hugh Jackman. We'll watch this. And they had nothing else to say.
And that's okay. Like, people will be like, well, you hate classic revivals? I don't think we do. Take a look at She Loves Me. That was a very traditional classic revival of an older musical with a few changes to try to make it a little bit more modern, and star-studded cast. We had fucking a superhero, Shazam, as the lead, and then we had Laura Benanti, a well-respected soprano, as like the co-lead, but also been on TV a bunch. That I really liked that. I thought that revival was great.
Yes, but they understood the show and made the show correctly. This one, it's beyond just they didn't have their own take on the show. They didn't even understand why the show worked in the first place.
And was embarrassed that they had to put on the show, was the feeling I had throughout it. They felt actively really afraid of their content. And that's a bummer, because I love the Music Man. I kind of love it a little less. And I think I went into like my long history with it in our proper episode, which I don't know how well this will do as a dessert after listening to that. But man, this just made me real sad. And I won't say the Music Man is perfect, but it was perfect at what it was trying to do. Valentine to a man's very personal connection to his hometown. And here it became a corporate tool.
The thing is, it's not a perfect show. The Music Man isn't perfect. It's never been like a masterpiece or anything. It's always been it's like comfort food, right? It's a very simple, easy to enjoy, easy to digest show. And somehow they fucked it up.
Somehow they gave us food poisoning with it.
It's like they couldn't make the macaroni and cheese. They couldn't figure out. They read the instructions on the back of the Kraft box and they couldn't fucking do it.
They burnt it. How did you burn it?
How do you burn mac and cheese? What the fuck are you doing?
I don't think I'm gonna top that. So Andrew,
I guess that's my cheese rating as well, right?
Yeah. Honestly, do you mind if I share that one? Because that was the perfect metaphor.
Yeah. I guess that's my overall thoughts and cheese rating right there. We didn't even have to ask for it. That's it.
Yeah. On that note, thank you guys for listening. Please follow us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher at Musicals with Cheese. Follow us on Twitter at Cheesy Musicals, Patreon Musicals with Cheese, Instagram Musicals with Cheese. We have a YouTube page, Musicals with Cheese, a Patreon-only podcast called Patreon with Cheese. Go check that out. Email us at musicaltheaterlives@gmail.com. Our keeper of the cheese is Juliet Antonio. Your son ASMR for Music Man Revival kinda sucked. This show is edited by the incredible Andrew DeWolf. Good luck with this one. Our themes are created by Robyn Nash of IOU Music UK. Thank you to the Broadway Podcast Network for having us on the platform and for not kicking us off for Everybody's Reading, yay!
Everybody's reading, yay!
I guess we'll have to see you next time on Musicals with Cheese. 76 trombones led the big parade, with 110 cornets close at hand. They were followed by rows and rows of the finest virtuosos, the cream of every famous band.